I suppose it is one of the favorite of Jesus' images, and one that we worry about excessively, I think. The image of being the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the world, says Jesus. And I'm always struck by the fact that he just says that with no ifs. There's a but there, but if it loses its flavor. But he just says it to everybody that will hear it. You are the salt of the earth. Now, immediately, people have a tendency to jump to what comes after but. We always do that. I love you, but kind of ruins it, doesn't it? I love you, but takes away the blessing. And so let's not do that to ourselves this morning. Let's just allow ourselves to hear, you are the salt of the world. And let's just remain with that for a few minutes. What if you were the salt of the world? Well, what does salt do? Salt changes things. Salt has that property that if you put it in something that you're cooking, it changes everything. It enhances the flavor that's already there. It changes the flavor depending upon how much you put in there. So it changes things. The salt, and in real life, if we back away from the metaphor, salt changes things. Salt is also something that we can't live without. We're salt water. Did you know that? We're stardust and salt water. That's what makes us up. We stop living with water, salt water drains away and the stardust blows away. So we've got salt in us. And so Jesus picks up on that and says, but you are also salt to the world. For me, that sounds like a blessing, to be told that I am the salt of the world. Because it means that somehow I'm here on purpose. That somehow, in the grand scheme of what God is up to in creation, I have a role to play. I'm a change agent. Wherever I go, there's the possibility of enhancing life, my life and somebody else's life. There's the possibility of changing things in myself and in the world in which I participate. So I want us to claim that. It's a profound blessing to be the salt of the world. Because as you go, you bring the uniqueness of yourself into every situation. On purpose. God's purpose. It doesn't mean that you're always out doing religious things. It means that you're always out being yourself. Your better self. Your best self. Your salty self. Now, there is, but if salt loses its flavor. Now, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know what causes salt to lose its flavor. But I do know that salt gets tossed out on the street so that we don't slip and fall. But you know, I did this, not recently, many years ago, picked up a piece of that salt. It's still salt. Hasn't lost its flavor, but it sure gets trampled on and driven over. And even when it's doing that, it's saving a few lives Salt is amazing. And so when Jesus says, you are the salt of the world, to me I hear, you are the most useful, life-giving, life-changing person that God could come up with at the time God came up with you. But you're here for a reason. And yes, we get trampled on. That's why we worry about the trampling part. Jesus says if it loses its flavor, it gets thrown out, it gets trampled on. Well, in my experience, getting trampled on is part of being salt. If you upset the apple cart enough as a change agent, you get trampled on. The cart of culture doesn't like to be changed. It doesn't like having the life of God's love injected within its own life. So, if you're going to be the salt of the world, you better expect to get trampled on now and then. Christians have been trampled on forever. Sadly, Christians have also trampled on other people. Now, he also says, you're the light of the world. You know where light is useful? When it's dark. We don't use lights what we do in here because it's kind of dark. But where light is most useful is where the dark is. And I think Jesus surely had that in his mind. You are the light to the world, and you must find that light. You must go to where that light is most needed, to the dark. And start with yourself. You know, everything that Jesus said can't be turned into something to do for somebody else. Whatever you hear Jesus saying, you have to start with yourself. You're the light of the world. Don't put a bushel over it. What good is that? Let the light shine in yourself. There are dark places in there. There are dark places in there that people have layered over your life all your life. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're not this. You're not that. All that darkness. And we believe it when we're little, you know. So that's all there. So we need to take that light into ourselves, but we also need to be the light to the world. We need to be the light to the world. And go where the darkness is. We live in a pretty dark world. We also live in a beautiful world. A world that we may be trying to ruin as fast as possible, but so far there's still beauty here. There's still beauty that we can be a part of by turning on some lights. No, we will not lose this beauty. No, we will not drill oil wells in national parks. No, we will not allow drainage from the mines to go into the creeks. No, see that? Light turning on where there's darkness. And it all starts with us. I think that's the point of what Jesus said. It doesn't start by saying, now go out and do something, go do something, go do something. Everything that you're asked to do has to start from within. You can't be ordered to do these things. I can't make you feel guilty enough to do these things. Nobody, I say that because nobody can make me feel guilty enough to do what I don't want to do. You got to lay on some pretty powerful stuff to make me feel guilty. It can be done, so let's not get started. It can be done. But what I'm suggesting is that which rises up in us, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of the world that God designed, once it rises up in us, then it goes out. It's exactly what the Old Testament lesson was about. If you heard those words, I love the one phrase that Isaiah said. You know, there were really 2 sermons in today's readings, and I'm kind of cheating, trying to do both. Day after day, you seek me and delight to know my ways, as if you were a nation that practiced righteousness. That's what God says to Israel. You keep complaining that I'm not present with you, as if you were a righteous nation. I don't know why that keeps coming back to my mind these days. But you see, what he says later in the Old Testament correlates with what we've been saying about salt and light. He says, these are the things that I want from you. Justice, release to the captives, food for the hungry. Those are the very things that salt does once it's let loose in the world. We're blessed people, we here in St. Philip's. We are. I've been around long enough to know that you're all blessed. You're blessed with love. You're blessed with children. You're blessed with the love of this little congregation. I'm beginning to see how blessed you are. And that's why things happen here. That's why things happen. Wherever people are blessed and know they're blessed, things happen. There's an awakening. There's a light. There's salt. Things are changed. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light to the world. Amen. Go forth into the world rejoicing at the power of God's Holy Spirit.
Thanks be to God. Alleluia. Alleluia.